Face front, true believers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
10 years ago, Marvel's Daredevil stood above the rest and showed us the quality storytelling other shows were blind to. But not this show. Sorry, couldn't resist. Now, with its official return, the burden falls to us to discern the truth by asking the question, will the new show measure up to the original? Join us as we start discerning Daredevil Born Again. That's right. We're so back, baby.
Yeah, this is a big full circle moment for us. It's kind of our 10th anniversary too.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, like, it's not like we've technically been doing this a little bit longer, but I would definitely wager to say that the Marvel Netflix stuff, Dragon, and us covering it, like, that was kind of like our baptism into just working heavily together, man. Like,
well, I mean, that's the thing, Tiki.
We're all in on this shit at this point.
Well, that's the thing. So we had it. So think about this, Tiki. Going back to the first year we worked together, that we were still doing the speculations on the Marvel Netflix shows, and then we did the full-on discerning Daredevil and everything, like the proper 10-year marker, which is this for
oh god, so many on-camera props, Dragon. So many on-camera props. Anyways. All right. Well, the on-camera props are not back, but we are, at least for the first episode.
But seriously, I just want to acknowledge this at the start of what we're doing here. I mean, as you can kind of tell, we are kind of trying to take the things that we've learned over 10 years, and we're kind of going back to the old stomping grounds, because that's kind of what this show's doing. It's kind of like fusing the original Netflix show with kind of like the way we kind of make things now, with the Disney Plus banner. So it's kind of a fusion. That's kind of what we're doing here. But we are, I don't know, this fellow was kind of like meta and reflective that we should try and do the same.
For sure. Okay. So, Dragon, on our thesis statements, I'm going to tell you right now, with this episode, I've got some nitpicks on it, and I know that you're very passionate about it. So would you like to go first or second? I will give you that choice.
I mean, I can probably put sugar in whatever you're throwing out there, so I don't know.
Okay. So I like this episode. Honestly, I think episode 2, which, once again, like I feel like with TV shows in general, we're kind of seeing this trend more and more of like, oh, just put 2 or 3 episodes up as the first week of content. And honestly, it's a little annoying, especially from a podcasting point of view. Episode 2, Dragon, I feel like gets the ball rolling a lot more as far as like, we're really setting up what the actual arcs and moral dilemma and struggles are going to be this time around. Episode 1, I'm not going to lie, I honestly thought a lot of it was a little sloppy. We have great stuff here, don't get me wrong. The big scene where we see in the thumbnail, the big confrontation at the diner, that's great, that's gold. Like, honestly, Dragon, that scene lives up to anything that we saw in the first 3 seasons of Netflix Daredevil. Having said that, Dragon, clearly there were some creative decisions made in the first 20 minutes of this show that are going to be a little bit divisive. I'm not necessarily like going to shoot down shock value, but man, I feel like we were bait and switched here, and it leaves a not so great taste in my mouth. And honestly, just we'll get into this a little bit more as we go along, but Dragon, for me, it's pretty obvious. Like, they did not cover their tracks well as far as like essentially like they're going to bring Karen and Foggy in just to placate the fans and say like they're technically here only to do what they did with them. And it's obvious to me that they did that and they kind of had to like work around the reshoots to get Karen and Foggy in here to begin with. I'm not so thrilled about that. I'm not so thrilled about the fact that like it's pretty obvious that we have, like essentially a whole other cast of side characters in Matt Murdock's world that are not Karen and Foggy, that were never supposed to interact with Karen and Foggy. This whole first episode, Dragon, essentially feels like a little bit of a Frankenstein and the edit of like what was in the original Born Again stuff, what was made to be a reshoot. I hope that it's just a first episode syndrome. I hope, because like I said, episode 2 already felt like a good step in the right direction. I hope that we can go up from here. Clearly, the stuff between Matt and Fisk is still really, really compelling, like must-see TV. But I don't know, man. There's certain elements of this episode that just feel a little sloppy for me. So that's kind of where I stand on it.
Yeah. So look, overall, I was very blown away by episode 1. I just, because mind you, there's a lot of anticipation. It's 7 years of waiting, and mind you, we've been just kind of teased and tantalized in the fact that we finally got the word like yes, it happened. It all happened. And I mean, I tell you, man, look, the first 20 minutes, basically the opening of the show was, I mean, I was head over heels for it. I was, mind you, it was shocking, yes, but it was, and I think as a lot of people have kind of said in interviews, it was kind of necessary to get kind of Matt Murdock where we kind of need him for this. I don't know. We'll get into it when we get into it, but I was enamored by it. I felt like we kind of did a lot of bucket list stuff with Daredevil. That like the only few remaining things that were on the table from the Netflix show. Mind you, we still need the D's. Come on, D. We still need the D's. That's like the one visual thing we still haven't gotten, but everything else that we're checking off the list, man. I mean, that's the thing with kind of our regime change, and I will give you this. I did see. I was thinking, and there's a very specific thing we have running through this season based on the 2 episodes. It really does feel like it's a big. I can't prove it, but I suspect that is a huge thing from the original version of the show before we kind of changed a lot of stuff. So I'm definitely seeing some kind of Frankensteining going on here. But we like let's run a little Frankenstein now and again. If so long as it works and serves the story, which I mean so far. I don't know. I feel episode 1 still did right by things. I was very sucked into episode 1, and I was like on the edge of my seat. I was just like I was like studying every like line of dialogue. I don't know. I was dialed into it. So I think it worked. But yes, I can see the Frankensteining. Mm-hmm. I have faith that again they went to a lot of troubles. My initial fear was, oh God, what if there was just a bait and switch that's happening here? So essentially, everyone's like the word on the street seems to absolutely
a little bait and switch, Dragon. We'll get.
Well, that's the thing. That's the weird thing. It feels so. There was a bait and switch. By the same token, it's a bait and switch that makes sense to me, so long as like it's not like the door is completely shut specifically on never seeing them again. Mm-hmm. If it's shut and we never see them again, then obviously that's an absolute bait and switch, and that's dirty pool. But again, I really have faith in them that this is something that serves the story, and we're going to bring these characters back when the story necessitates it in a way that won't underwrite anything that's going to actually hopefully make a lot of sense. But again, we'll break it down anyway.
All right, so Dragon, let's get into the plot.
All right, so here's the plot. Bullseye seeks revenge. By the way, spoilers, folks. From this point forward, big spoilers, okay?
Really quick, Teddy says, Matt, this entire episode is just like, God damn it, I can't escape this guy, as Wilson Fisk announced his mayor campaign.
Well, the perils of Murdoch Vision. You hear everything. You can't escape anything. All right, so plot. Bullseye seeks revenge, which leads to the death of Franklin Foggy Nelson. Daredevil then tosses him off a roof. And Daredevil, this leads to Daredevil retiring as Matt Murdock starts his practice with Kristen McDuffie. But is disturbed to hear Wilson Fisk is campaigning for mayor. The two have a visit. By the end, on his anti-vigilante platform, Fisk becomes mayor of New York City as they reign in the new year. That is episode 1.
All right, well said. So, let's get into the arcs.
So we got to start with Matt Murdock, as we are wont to do. So Matt, again, we start things off. Again, that was kind of like the part of the bait and switch there, in the good sense.
So, you know what, Dragon? I feel like that first scene we have at Josie's, one of the things that doesn't sit well with me about it is honestly, and I can't really put my finger on why I feel this way about it, but it just feels rushed. It just feels like, okay, like we need to establish very quickly, for people who maybe did not watch Daredevil on Netflix, like Karen and Foggy as characters, why Matt cares about them, why losing Foggy is so devastating. Like, it basically like feels like we're speed rushing through, like, okay, this is Matt Murdock's life, this is the status quo, and we're gonna break the status quo immediately. And it's just from like, I mean, it's not like Iron Fist levels of like sloppy writing or anything. I don't want to paint that picture, but it doesn't feel as graceful as it could. It's not. It kind of feels like a little bit rushed is the word I would use for it.
I don't feel that it's rushed, Tiki. I really feel that it's basically it's a it's kind of a refresher because it has been a while, and again, some people don't rewatch the show as often as as you or I do. I mean, hopefully, honestly, what I did before this.
I rewatched the show. Honestly,
okay, I was trying to be nice. Okay,
I don't got time for that shit.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. So this is actually to your benefit. I guess what I'm saying to you is this is kind of to your benefit. So even if you have seen the show, and the point being, it's been a while, no matter what, it's been 7 years. It's kind of an observance of, a lot of time has passed. Even in universe, roughly 7 years has passed, and we're kind of acknowledging, okay, we're getting a feel for where these characters are. And again, right off the bat, we're seeing this is really on brand with like how these characters operate and where they would be. And we see the first thing we see Nelson Murdock and Paige sign. Just importantly, we see Matt is in a good place, just in the status quo with his friends. He's achieved the balance that he spent 3 seasons kind of seeking there. Things are looking good with the reconciliation with all of them. With there might be a path of reconciliation with Karen Page. They're kind of they're friends, but might be a little something there, but platonic friendship, huh? But that's the thing, you see, there's the chemistry of our old friends together, and then just. I just love the we got Josie's back. We didn't necessarily need the fact that we went to Josie's of all places too. It just felt like, oh man, we're back in the old.
It's a nice little callback. I won't deny that.
Now, to your point though about some of our Frankensteining and just what might be left over and what we might be able to fix, there's one thing that so far 2 episodes in we still don't have a ruling on, and they're being a little cagey about whether he's confirmed or not. The actor said no, but it's unclear if it's just him playing the Marvel ball game. So Brett Mahoney has been noticeably absent so far.
Right, yeah.
Now, there again, I've heard both sides. I've heard he's coming back, but I've heard him saying no. But again, and there's been some reports of maybe he was on the set, maybe he wasn't. Mm-hmm. And it just feels interesting to me that we have this Cherry character who absolutely feels like in the old version of the show, they fill in for Brett Mahoney, where we have a cop friend of the guys who is retiring. This feels like it should be Brett Mahoney.
And I do like that character, by the way.
I know that's the thing.
One I'm attached to the most of so far.
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, Cherry, I liked him from the get-go. He seems like a very well-rounded character. There's nothing against that.
Very much like cut from the cloth of the Albuquerque verse. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That's the thing. So Cherry feels great and lived in, but it does make me wonder. Oh man, I hope Mahoney comes back, and it does. His role does feel like this would have been Mahoney's gig, but by the same token,
it does. And this obviously we need to go over some of the romantic stuff, which is obviously another kind of like pitfall of like, okay, this is obviously supposed to be like the replacement for Karen Page, essentially.
Well, yes and no. Matt Murdock, look, we saw they were in an uncertain romantic place at the end of season 3, so they don't necessarily have to get together. They're still really good friends, and we acknowledge the friend zone. So I don't think Matt Murdock gets around. He dates a lot of women. We saw with She-Hulk. He does this, so that's not...
That's true.
That one actually feels very on brand. Plus, again, he did date this woman in the comics. This is not like a complete random pool. So these are like,
Maybe I'm just very apprehensive about it because it's like going into that Batman Forever, superhero dating the therapist thing.
Now, the therapist thing, I don't know if she was a therapist in the comic, but here's the thing. In the comic, if memory serves, she had problems in the comics. So the therapist thing was kind of an upgrade for what we did with her in the book. It was kind of a thing where Matt Murdock he was kind of in a very immature relationship where I'm not saying age appropriate. I just mean like she was kind of like whiny or very frigid,
like a Brian Griffin relationship.
Yeah, exactly. She was like Jillian. From what I understand, she was kind of like Jillian. Anyway, but yeah, the overall take, I guess the broad spectrum before we get into the specifics with what Matt goes through in the episode. Just again with kind of our old guard, new guard. Our new guard is from the Mark Waid run, where essentially Daredevil, again, he did kind of distance. He went to San Francisco. And mind you, he's not in San Francisco.
That's funny that we kind of reuse San Francisco, but to get Karen out of the picture.
Yeah, so I think they kind of inverted it. So in the comics, he moved for a while. He moved to San Francisco, which is where they got the whole She-Hulk idea. What if he visits in California? So he went to San Francisco and he met all these characters that we're seeing here. Well, essentially, the whole starting the other firm, like he broke up with Foggy and he started a McDuff.
So you know what else kind of rubs me the wrong way about this, Dragon?
What?
It's not just Matt, it's kind of everything. Well, I'll save the Kingpin side of stuff, but I feel like with Kingpin, they even do this a little bit too. It feels very, and I don't say this like it's not as extreme as the example I'm going to bring up, but it feels very Disney Star Wars in the sense of like, we can't just have Well Enough Alone and we can't just have a continuation of the nice ending that we got in Daredevil season 3. Like it just feels like Disney is obsessed with taking these legacy characters and kind of like, throwing them into the lion's pit of despair. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Tiki,
it just kind of feels like Disney keeps doing this with their popular characters.
Well, again, I think that was just more of it's an unfortunate track record Disney's done. Where again, in this case, though, we have to necessitate why he is not in the suit. Why does he? Now, here's the hat trick. I feel.
But does he have to not be in the suit, Dragon? That's another issue that I have, and I'm sorry if I'm getting off the beaten path here a little bit with the arcs, but like. I kind of feel, I mean, I guess with the Born Again thing, you kind of have to do something in regards to him coming back. But like, I kind of feel like the whole like Spider-Man No More element of Daredevil, we've already kind of gone over that a little bit.
Well, that's the thing to me.
So it kind of feels like we're treading old territory a little bit. I don't necessarily feel like we had to have like an arc in this series of like Matt's coming back. Yet again, you know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing, Tiki. You're right in that Daredevil frequently retires a lot, but it's been kind of going on since season 2 on, where if you really think about it, because 2 we had kind of the in quotes retirement. Defenders were built on the retirement. 3 is kind of working his way back from retirement. He's being more Daredevil than he is Matt Murdock, but that's kind of it's similar, but it's him kind of retiring from the actual Daredevil suit and going back to his roots. So that's kind of different. So the challenge of like, how do we do kind of they're basically doing an inverse of. Sorry, let me just put it this way. We're kind of doing what season 3 did, but a little closer to the comics. But the whole. I think so far they've really sold me on it, mainly because we don't get that diner scene without him being retired. It's the only way you can have those two sit down and have that conversation because they were on a very even path, which I really liked.
Right.
So right. I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt, is what I'm saying, Tiki. Okay. So far, I'm really liking what I'm seeing. I think of all the other previous, for example, the main one to compare this to, Tiki. You have this suit retirement, and then you have Defenders. Defenders. That one was like, if you really look at Defenders, it's like, as much as I love Matt Murdock in that show, there's a lot of like, he's really like deluding himself that he can't.
Well, Defenders was definitely Matt Murdock at his sloppiest when it comes to the Netflix continuity.
So that's the thing. So compared to that, this feels like we're kind of doing that proper with, again, Defenders being part of a bigger universe. This is kind of Matt Murdock being part of it proper.
Speaking of Defenders and stuff, I was kind of wondering, because I don't know, man, again, with the Foggy Nelson getting killed off of it all, do you think we would have been better served to like have like, and I know obviously we already did this once, so it probably would lose its impact a little bit, but like maybe bringing back Elodie Young as Elektra and killing her in the opening instead, like it just, Foggy just feels like such a waste, man. And I want to talk about ways that we could see Foggy back, because I do think there's some potential avenues we could go down there to at least keep the actor around. But what do you think of that? Maybe like swapping out Foggy Nelson for kind of, or maybe even a Brett Mahoney or someone, like someone who's not as pivotal of a puzzle piece to the Daredevil iconography as Foggy Nelson is.
Well, Tiki, ultimately, with what they did, here's the thing. So Foggy is like the closest, essentially it's his brother. It's the closest person he has.
Daredevil's Robin, essentially.
Exactly. That's even more than as much as we love Karen. Like Foggy was there before Karen. Like Foggy is like is the connection. But the thing about it, we've gotten rid of like all the people that Daredevil has loved in one way or another. With Paul Lantum, his father, Paul Lantum, and Stick and Elektra, and that's what I'm saying. We've already bringing Elektra back would be a can of worms because I know technically she's been revived. Then we'd have to, but again,
Right.
say the original show. Elektra we couldn't do. Plus, that's the whole reason he retired after between two and Defenders. So we don't want to do that again. The point being, you had two people you could have potentially done. Brett, as much as we like Brett, I don't think it'd be enough for him to retire the way he did.
Right.
It has to be Foggy or Karen, and that was the choice they had to make. And we already here. I think there was a fair argument that maybe we should have done Karen, but we have the Punisher, and Karen the Punisher.
Honestly, with Karen, it's like she came so close to being killed off just story wise in season 3.
See, with Karen, you have two things. With Karen, if you kill her off, then it's like, well, we just basically did the moment from season 3 again, but we actually followed through on it.
Right.
I mean, I would attest it could have worked, but on the flip side, though, Foggy is the most impactful thing you could have. And plus, here's the reason I think it had to be Foggy. Well, I'm not bothered by it being Foggy ultimately so far. Is that we see it really in this wonderful visual detail. Matt is carrying around the funeral card with the braille on it of Foggy Nelson. And Foggy's whole thing and the entire crux of the series has been he wanted him to give up being Daredevil because he cared about his friend. And if anything is going to be the reminder and the deterrent and the frustrating thing in Murdoch's addiction to Daredevil and everything is going to be he can't if he puts on that suit, he's dishonoring his friend's memory. So that ties into everything that Foggy's been about, and he's trying to, there was a balance there. He didn't even want him to put on the suit in that last night. He tried to avoid the best he could, and he ended up putting that suit on. And everything that with Bullseye kind of came from Daredevil and him putting on that Daredevil suit. So that suit and Foggy, there's a triangle there, man. He doesn't want to.
Sure.
That's why I think ultimately, as painful as it is to do what they're aiming to do in this story, it kind of had to be Foggy.
And like I said, I do have some theories about ways we could see Foggy again, but maybe we can save that for real.
Exactly. Okay. All right. So just let me round out some Murdoch stuff, and then we'll move on to the. I think it's kind of a perfect opening to the new show. I think it's a fully formed Daredevil, sans the double D's. Again, it's a wonder with a Marvel movie budget. With him, again, the style of the show, he's actually using the grappling. We have like the Billy Club that can work as a fully functional grappling hook that we're actually seeing, which is really cool. Not just using it as a cool prop; he's actually able to grapple on it. Then here's the big takeaway: we have this brutal Frank Miller Daredevil Bullseye fight, like full on from the comics, as brutal as it is, and the costume allows him to be stabbed multiple times without dying.
Mm-hmm.
We throw everything.
By the end of the fight, like Matt Murdock's costume is essentially like a fucking pincushion.
Yes. Like a Deadpool Wolverine fight, and I love
it. Right.
So that's the thing, Tiki. It feels like they really we might not see Daredevil in costume for a while, so we really have to make it count. And what we're gonna do is the bucket list thing of seeing him and an in costume Bullseye fight, and basically Bullseye.
In costume in quotes, Dragon. Let's be real here.
He was missing one thing on the costume. All right, one thing. They're both missing one thing on the costume. To be frank,
it's true.
To be fair, they put the symbol on his glove, so it's still kind of there.
Yeah.
The point being, Bullseye cements himself as the other in Daredevil's history.
Better than like Baron Zemo. Like, ooh, look, he put on the helmet the one time. There it is. He put on the hood.
I mean, there's at least a tactical. Like, it would have been a target on his head, literally, if he wore that thing. That was like that's at least there's at least a logic. And who's to say maybe down the line we might not find some way to put it on there, but. The point being, plus we paid homage to it in the past. As a kid, he wore like the target on the baseball hat. I don't know. Anyway, point being, Bullseye cements himself as the other arch nemesis of Daredevil, alongside the Kingpin, with what he does with Foggy here, and just the brutality and the awesomeness of that fight, and just the thing the bigger takeaway, even as much as Foggy's death, is the thing that had me just gasping. And the big thing with the arc we have to hit here is that. Not only does he lose his oldest friend in the world, in the moment that he does, the moment and I love that during that whole fight, he hears Foggy dying, and that's just motivating him and angering him even more during the fight. Mm-hmm. He tosses Bullseye off the roof. That was the big moment. The fact, and again, thankfully Bullseye lived. thanks to essentially his adamantium skeleton, which we'll get into with Braille Trail, but essentially, well, somewhere we'll mention more somewhere. But he lucked out that Bullseye didn't die, but the fact that he knows and he's going to have to live with the knowledge that he crossed the line. He went to he tried to kill Bullseye again, which again is like the violation of the two things. It goes back to last episode of season 3, the whole like if Matt kills someone, he's never going to forgive himself, and it's like this great, wonderful gray area where he didn't kill him, but he meant to. And but he's not completely cutting himself off from everyone.
What's cool about that too is, and this might be a little bit more Braille Trail territory, but and I'm sorry, this is what we get for starting with 2 episodes, Dragon, but it does kind of bleed into the main conflict that it seems we're going to be getting for season 2 or for season 1, the main court case of it all. It seems like Matt's arc is going to kind of mirror that.
Yeah,
which is cool.
I'm just so in love with the hat trick of Bullseye survived, but he's always going to know that he tried to kill him, and that's, oh my god, so just this, it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, okay, all right, so let's, and also that's the other thing too. It's just that kind of the rebirth moment of like it's retired. There's retirement by choice, versus what doesn't defenders here. Where because of this, it's kind of the Batman Beyond rebirth moment, where it's like he knows he pulled that gun. That's why he has to hang up the suit. That's essentially what this moment is, and I think it's why it lands so well.
Sure.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, so I guess briefly, do you want to talk about Bullseye? Anything you want to say on Bullseye just real quick? Because we do have to, I guess, mention him briefly.
I would like to know some motivation beyond just revenge, like why he targeted Foggy in particular. And one of my favorite elements of that first scene is just Matt just screaming in his face, like, why?
I love we confirmed
What I love about Charlie Cox's performance, one of the things I love is that the dude does so good at like playing cool, calm, and collected when he's in lawyer mode, but then when he's in Daredevil mode, he's just like vicious, like he's primal.
Oh yeah, when he's just yelling "why," it does take you back to the fantastic end of season 3.
Exactly.
That yell, and you do not get to destroy who I am. But that's the thing, though. Also, they kind of tie it into real quick. Just again with Matt's thing is that again he's like burying the violence and the rage that he felt on that rooftop. That's basically what his imperative is here. He's basically he's trying to bury that trauma and just like again in honor of his friend, so he doesn't have to That's why he's pursuing the non-violent lifestyle, like full-on lawyer. He basically trying to do right by Foggy and ultimately his father as well, like he's everything his father ever wanted him to be. Right now with McDuffie and Murdoch and McDuffie, it's like it's the big fancy law firm.
Sure.
Anyways, a Bullseye. So I'm so happy to see him in costume. Yes, I wish the logo was on the head. I know, but the logo is on the hands though, and we have the great. Here's the bit that I was just cheering for. Okay, he straightened the light bulb, so he represented the OCD that he had in season 3. Like right after he killed the fly, like he adjusted the light bulb. But anyway, so in regards to the whole I love that we addressed right up the get go that Kingpin didn't do this. Okay, Kingpin didn't send him there. Plus, he and Kingpin probably aren't on speaking terms after the whole trying to kill Vanessa thing. In terms of like why Foggy, I really think now I will say this. Now, mind you, I'm convinced we're going to see Bullseye again down the line. I think Karen has unfinished business with Bullseye. That is my theory. Mm-hmm. So I think we're going to get more answers as to what exactly is going on here because it is a big moment, and I'm sure this is not the last we're going to see of him. I would want to say for a fact that Kingpin did not tell him who Daredevil was. He didn't go there specifically. Like I don't think he knows that Matt Murdock's Daredevil during all of this. I think Foggy and Karen, and I guess to an extent, again, knowing Matt Murdock's probably going to be there, Nelson and Murdock put him behind bars. And I think he's really upset about that because he knows like the whole Ray Nadeem thing. That was Foggy who went there and he basically, he got the whole dying declaration thing. And I suspect, and this is me reading between the lines, my theory is that the reason Kingpin is able to run for mayor and everything is that they put all the murders onto Dex. Like through some legal technicality, they put all the murders on him and he basically, the whole conspiracy stuff he was somehow able to walk on.
Right, right.
Again, through a lot of, I'm sure, like a lot of zeros on a check, he was able he was able to walk on. But anyway, so that's thing. So I mean, he did have a grudge against Foggy, and more specifically Karen. He went to Foggy's place. I think he was just going to kill them all systematically, one by one. He was going to Foggy's, and then he had like the guy who was like kind of bunking there, and that's that guy, accidentally told him like, yeah, Foggy's at Josie's, and it was like 3 birds at 1 stone in Bullseye's mind. That's what I think happened there.
Okay.
I was saying, I think Foggy would have been on his list, though, so that does make sense. Why he didn't go after the Kingpin first? I mean, Kingpin was kind of in hiding, so I mean that might be another factor in there, because he was recovering from the Echo gunshots. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah. So point being, just it's really really great fight. And also, one last thing I want to hit with it, just in terms of his where he's gone from just being the very put together FBI agent, just being complete full on psychopathic assassin. He was killing random bystanders for fun. If you notice during that fight, he's throwing, like, he doesn't need to kill any of those people, but he is like complete random peoples left and right.
Yeah, no, it definitely fits in with the psychopath thing that we saw at the end of season 3 for sure.
My favorite details with the sniper and everything. I love that the scope looked like the Bullseye logo. That was a nod to like the very last shot of Daredevil season 3, where they had like the logo in the eye. So he has it with the scope. It's awesome. Anyway, okay, so let's talk about Kingpin.
Yes, let's talk about the Kingpin and his campaign promises, Dragon.
Yep.
Okay, so I mean, once again, I kind of feel like we do a little bit of a Disney Star Wars thing where it's like we have Kingpin and Vanessa as like one of the true villain power couples, not just in Marvel, not just in superhero context, but like in media in general. I feel like Wilson Fisk and Vanessa were like just a true villain power couple, like a top tier villain power couple. And now they're literally in couples therapy, Dragon. Like, I understand that Echo is unfortunately kind of like the albatross around this show's neck in regards to the Kingpin stuff that we just have to address.
Yeah.
But for me, there's something just a little bit like disingenuous and disappointing about coming back and Vanessa and Wilson are having marital issues when the appeal of these two for the entire run of the first show is just how in sync with each other they were.
Okay, here's how I feel about that, Tiki. So I want to say this, just that on the whole with the Kingpin, and mind you, I'm going to give the show benefit of that on this part of it, but I still really need them to address, like, how the heck he's able to run for mayor, because I've looked it up. I've
mayor
tried.
Stuff, I will say, happened. It again kind of feels like a little bit of a Frankenstein of an edit, where I kind of feel like it was supposed to happen over the course of a few episodes, and in the rewrite and the reshoots, they were like, "Nah, we got to get this shit moving. He's got to announce his candidacy and run and win within like the second half of the first episode." It all happens very fast.
I think that bothers me less because of the whole Echo thing, where they kind of said, okay, so they said, okay, so he's on the campaign trail, he's going to be trying to be mayor, and basically the idea is the campaign's been going on.
Though, Dragon, how many people watching the show actually bothered to watch Echo?
No, I'm saying we see he's actively in the midst that he's been campaigning, so I don't mind like the terms of the timeline. What I mind is how the heck we're addressing it. Well, again, so we know for a fact, he's had people he basically corrupted the FBI. How is that guy going to be able to be elected mayor?
Right.
That's what bothers me. But it's in terms of the leap in the relationship thing. Okay, so 2 things. One, in the comics, they have had, again, tradition. I know the show obviously went a very wonderful, different route with it. I don't have which I love. I love more than the comics in this regard. I'm just saying in the comics, there was a lot of marital strife between them. So the fact that we've kind of built to that, after a lot of time has passed, there's built to it. We've seen the one flaw in the Vanessa Kingpin relationship, not flaw in a bad way, but just the kryptonite in the relationship is that when he is distant from her, it really hurts her. That was the whole point of season 3. Like, she really wanted to be in on, and basically she's become Queen Pin. That's essentially the response to that. And I really think it's the way they've gone about it here. So far, I've been liking, but again, we're still in the early throes of it. They're doing kind of a House of Cards thing, in which you had two very powerful people who are on different have different agendas, but are in a marriage. And I feel they do still absolutely love each other, but I think honestly they're reconciling with the fact that the pursuit of the pursuit of power between the two of them, pursuit of being at the top of their fields. I think that was always the thing. Where it was always like King. Every time they were lovey-dovey and they were having this really wonderful relationship, it was always Kingpin in pursuit of something. But now that he essentially has won and he has everything, I think that's like them realizing there's a relationship problem here. Where again, she's all powerful in the criminal underworld, he's all powerful in the light right now. It's like the thrill is kind of gone, which I think all marriages kind of deal with, and it's just kind of Kingpin dealing with like the romantic side.
From an audience standpoint, though, it just, for me, it kind of.
But I'm with you though, and the fact in which the way we jump into like time has passed, we're not acknowledging why exactly things have gone off the rails. That I do agree.
Once we get into the couples therapy side of it, I think it solidifies itself a little bit. But yeah, I agree that like the kind of introducing the marital tension felt a little bit like, wait, what, we're here now with the relationship? All right.
But again, the way we get into it, yes, it does feel, it's just in Kingpin overall, we kind of sidestepped a lot of some necessary stuff in terms of, we spent all the time cementing Daredevil status quo. I think Kingpin didn't get the same treatment. That does show.
Which, again, I kind of feel like it has to do with the fact that, like, Echo is sort of like, the show is like, it happened, but like we're not going to really go into the weeds of the details of it.
D'Onofrio's been very nice about it, but you can kind of tell like he's also Tiki. I swear, I really love what we did with the Kingpin in Echo, except that last episode. I hated so much. Like, again, he's acting the heck out of it, and he's doing his best there, but just plot wise, it just feels like why is he? She did her stupid power that she shouldn't have on him, and that changed his viewpoint. And I just never liked that. The whole stupid, like, she gave him her generational trauma powers on him. I didn't like that.
Yeah, and I'm glad that this show is not addressing any of that bullshit.
Exactly. So but D'Onofrio, then again, he's factoring all of this into the way he's legitimized that, and he's not really bringing it into the show. Like, they're not shouting it out and talking about it in detail because it's stupid. But I love that he did. The big takeaway is that she tried something. She basically tried to get rid of his trauma, and it didn't work. But it's basically kind of made him perceptive to what if I were doing things in a different way, which basically facilitates the mayor thing. That's okay. Again, I like the way he's
and
going with it as
obviously
an
Wilson Fisk running for mayor. I mean, frankly, it's something I'm surprised we never actually saw in the original Netflix show, because it's like it's quintessential Daredevil Kingpin conflict.
So with that, Tiki, and this is what I love, and why I think it's necessary. We kind of have to necessitate him and Vanessa kind of on the outs the way we are. It's basically Daredevil and Kingpin. If the show is working right, as it always has with these two characters, they have to be in parallel to each other with where they're going in the season. So we kind of start them. We've kind of taken a big blow to their status quo, the thing that is like has defined their character, the friendship with Foggy Nelson, the relationship with Vanessa, and it's a thing where honestly, the realization I had on this episode is that Kingpin. The Born Again is like, think of it. Season 3 was all about basically adapting the Born Again comic with Matt Murdock, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really feel, looking at it, maybe Daredevil Born Again, the show, is more about Kingpin's Born. Because think about it, the whole show is very much putting a fine point, and this is like Kingpin as mayor and like how he's dealing with it, and him basically trying to turn over a new leaf in the public eye. This feels like Born Again Fisk more than is Born Again Daredevil. I think that's really interesting in a way of not repeating themselves. So that's the way they're going to parallel each other this season. It's the separation of beloved ones by choice and consequence,
Mm-hmm.
So Yeah, and also, I mean, the interesting thing is, the election. It's kind of like the dividing times allow Fisk the opportunity to rise because people respect power and a comeback story before they respect logic sometimes.
So I'm going to shout out Council of Geeks here, who made a really good observation about the political side of this. Where she says that essentially what I like about the election stuff, and I agree with her when it comes to this, is I feel like they do a good job of like mirroring Trump in regards to the followers of Fisk and how gung-ho they are and how scary it is that there's such a mob mentality around it without having Fisk himself come off as like, like a Pedro Pascal, Maxwell Lord style, like straight up Trump parody. Like he's still very much his own thing. Like we're not taking the Wilson Fisk character and molding him into that. It's more so we're taking his followers, which frankly has always been the thing about Trump that scared me the most, honestly. And we're taking his followers and really kind of like making that the political kind of like one for one.
I mean, yeah, that's two things. So, one, the showrunners had a really great. They did this interview at IGN recently. They had a really basically it's only focusing on the 2 episodes that dropped, and they mentioned something really interesting. Where basically they were watching there's a scene where you see Fisk kind of campaigning. He's doing like debates and everything, and basically like in a vacuum you could watch this and you could see. I could see why people vote for him because he's basically cutting to the truth and he's not he's not playing the politically. Fisk kind of says we want. Frankly, it's us, the audience. We like D'Onofrio playing the Kingpin. There's a charisma there. And you kind of understand a vacuum why you would vote for this. Basically, what if, again, I'm not taking a political stance here. I'm just taking like a sense of just like, basically like, water.
No, and again, it's like he's not a caricature. He's not just like they're not just trying to do Orange Man bad.
Yeah,
but they are kind of taking a lot of the.
It's the fact that there are parallels, and again, the fact is, New Yorkers, and we literally had Kingpin stay at the presidential hotel, essentially, the Trump hotel, in season 3, and we had him use fake news as a term, but again, it wasn't beating you over the head, but it was just kind of there, and there's similarities, it just kind of happens to be that. It's basically it's just a lot more charisma because he's an awesome fictional comic book character, but but again, I like that the logic. There's more. Oddly, there's more logic there. But yeah, it's kind of logic of how Wilson Fisk would rise to prominence. And again, people is kind of ignoring the past just for the fact that he is getting it done. Which again, by the way, I was so happy that we kind of brought that back because he says to get things done in the next episode, and I love it because it's my warm up every time I do like the faux like D'Onofrio. It's like get it done. Let's get it done in Vanessa. Those are the 2 lines. So anyway, also real quick before we just move on, I love that I love seeing Vanessa in white, just for the whole, the fact she's kind of become the Kingpin. But I love that's the loophole
of it all.
Yep, and I love that that's the loophole in the deal that he made with Daredevil at the end of 3, where hey, I won't go after your wife so long as you stay in line. So hey, that's Vanessa though, so she's on the hook for anything she does, and she's been really smart about it. So excellent loophole. Okay, so also big thing, this is going to be very important to the show. The cost of his kind of his election pursuit here. Vanessa has been unfaithful. Now that is really interesting, and she's not hiding it. It's a very open thing of like, I've been with Adam, don't promise me you won't kill him, and he promises her. Now the question is, will he cross the line?
We'll see.
Okay, so we should probably mention Karen Fogg because it might be a while before we see him again.
I mean, like I said, I think I have with them it's mostly speculation, so I think maybe we should save that for Braille Trail.
Okay, let's talk about the blinding moment of awesome.
I'm blind Matt Murdock. I'm blind Matt Murdock. I'm blind Matt Murdock. I'm blind Matt Murdock.
Just had to get a few of them in there.
In memoriam, folks. We miss him. We miss him dearly. Moment of awesome. We like to tribute. Like the big standout, like a huge standout moment from the episode.
I think it's fair to say that. I mean, say what you will about like the decision to kill Foggy, but the actual opening set piece fight scene between Daredevil and Bullseye is definitely a moment of awesome in its own right. But
we just wanted to be able to talk about it though, instead of having to wait for it. So that's why we kind of didn't put it here. Otherwise, yes, it would be that, and the scene I'm about to mention, I think, would have definitively been the blinding moments of awesome. So I'm going to start us off because mine comes first. So the diner scene. Oh my God, this is perfect in every way.
I love how it starts. I love how Wilson Fisk just literally walks out of his building, and it's just like, it's been a long time. Like, we don't even see Matt at first. I love that.
God. The build-up here. Okay, so of course, historically in the show, Daredevil and Kingpin, we've always built up like the in-person encounters. Like technically, if you want to, like, really, it's like in a big way, it's like once per season. I know season 1 technically they have two battles together, but let's keep it simple, okay? Because you have like the end of season 1, you have one scene in season 2, which, by the way, I love that we parallel here because they're across a table from each other. The prison scene in season 2, where Matt Murdock goes to visit Fisk in prison, and then of course they do not physically inhabit the same space in reality until the very end of season 3. So it was awesome. So the fact that we usually build these up like into the midst or like right towards the tail end, or if not the very end of the season, and episode 1. They're meeting each other. Yep. Oh my God. Yep. Again, it's a great
subversion. I feel like this is probably going to be like a little bit of a thesis statement for their dynamic, and we're probably not going to get them in the same room until at least close to the end of the season.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. So they haven't, so the fact they haven't seen each other in years, they know each other so well at this point, which is, again, I love the meta quality.
I love how they are genuinely courteous to each other. Like,
very cordial.
It's not just a pleasantries thing. I really feel like there is, like, on some level with both of them, like a very begrudging sense of respect, you know?
Again, it's kind of like it's a sane version of the Batman-Joker relationship,
totally,
you know?
Totally. Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, these two know each other. And I love there's the meta aspect of, Charlie Cox and D'Onofrio, they were the ones, along with the fans, campaigning for the return and everything. So these guys, they are in it. They know these characters. They love these characters. They love hanging out with each other in terms of, like, professionally. So this is them kind of reconnecting on screen in a fun way. It feels almost, I know it's not, but it feels like an improvised scene. But it's just this fun catch up, in broad daylight between them. It's just the dialogue is so in character. I love that we're actually having the whole thing of, like, Matt Murdock using his senses, like, like, you can tell you've lost weight and your footsteps lighter. It's just like, I'm not going to spar with you. No, I'm just saying, it's good. So the two of them just sitting at a diner of all places, just having coffee and just kind of talking. And again, it's this. Ultimately, it's pleasantries aside. I love. We also have this hysterical thing of, like, do you have kids? No, you. Well, I took on a mentor, but I tried to mentor someone. Didn't know. She shot you in the face, and this is the laugh that he gives. And we've never had him, like, casually laugh.
That's pretty much the closest thing we've had in Daredevil so far to just kind of, like, casually referencing the continuity.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Them referencing it this way is just great. Like, they're laughing at just like, the things that the other Marvel shows do with us.
Right.
It's just like, so I hear you get around. You like the color green. Is that right, Murdoch?
Oh God.
Anyway, but yeah. So I'm impressed that Murdoch, he's just leveling with Fisk here, and he mentions in the scene, it's kind of the Catholicism, man, where he's giving him a chance and the belief that people can change. He's like giving him this one chance, and really it's less actually giving him a chance, more just a warning. It's basically like a stay in line. If you take a step out of line, then I'm coming after you. But it goes both ways, where I've retired, but you're the only thing that could get me out of retirement. So just don't make me come out of retirement, essentially, which is a great, again, this is the kind of scene I live for, because it's the parallel between the two of them, the connection. It's everything that these two are on right now in the show. They are on equal footing. They're in a new status quo. They've lost things. They've been through a lot. And again, it's like, even though the Kingpin could be on the rise, it's like, look, if you actually, Kingpin has historically always said, going back to season 1, he actually cares about the city. And this is him kind of proving it. Daredevil, the fact that he's giving them a chance is like an interaction I would never expect between the two of them. But in this context, it makes all the sense in the world.
Totally.
The other thing I got to mention before we transition is that also I love like the whole New Yorker in them too. The whole I miss Becky's diner. They both
Yeah.
which is great. But it's just this moment of I am so enamored. I can't tell you. I was already sucked into this episode, but I was like, oh my god, my eyes were like glued to the screen with Kingpin actually giving him sympathy over tossing Bullseye off the roof. That I was like gobsmacked by. Like, oh my god, it's like Kingpin has an advantage over Daredevil here. And basically Daredevil has he did cross the line, at least in intent. And that's the in that the Kingpin needs. So he's gonna be able to lord that over his head. But the fact that he isn't just like he's not being mean about it. He actually is giving like he's doing that mentor thing. The whole like I understand like like in the violent that moment of like when you cross the line, you let the violent nature out. You let the devil out. That's what happened with his father as a kid. So there's an understanding there.
Yeah, totally.
So that's just. So that's great, and again, I want to, and just again, the big thing for this season overall is I love that, and in this moment right now, especially when he actually becomes mayor, which we'll get to, I love that in this moment they have both become the men that their fathers wanted them to be, which is what the whole series has been built on in terms of like season one, with them like, being on the paths to be what their fathers were. Where he has become mayor, he's exceeded his father's expectations, and Matt right now having put Daredevil aside, he's become a very successful, upstanding lawyer. Right now, he's doing everything. That's all he's been doing. This is like, I don't know. It's just really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so just that great challenge posed to both of them in this scene of like, can you both avoiding their destiny of like Daredevil and the Kingpin, just like going on their diverging paths, and just it's not going to last, and it's a phenomenal scene. I bow to it. I love it. Okay.
All right, my blinding moment comes right at the end, and it's essentially the rooftop face-off. But Dragon, here's what I really love about this moment, just in a nutshell, is that like honestly, it doesn't really matter if this is actually like happening in real life or if it's in the characters' heads. Like it's a very symbolic moment. You know what I mean?
Over the color too.
Yeah, where it's just like Kingpin is looking down on the roof, Matt Murdock is looking up at him. And again, I love how it's like it doesn't even need to be going on. Like Matt Murdock doesn't need to literally be there looking up at him from the roof. I feel like it's just like such a great kind of like visual kind of roadmap on where they are in their dynamic and their relationship. It's just like Fisk is always going to be lording over New York from the rooftop, kind of looking down on people, but Daredevil is always going to be there keeping him in check. And I love the visual symbolism of that.
Yeah. It was a heck of a way to end the episode too.
And both these episodes have had great endings so far. We've gone two for two on awesome.
Also, I love how we kind of open and close on the importance of the rooftop, given that's where Matt's life kind of, Daredevil's life kind of ended. That's where Kingpin is. He's on top, he's on the bottom now. So they've really kind of swapped things spatially. So that's great.
All right.
Okay.
So without further ado, let's go to the Braille Trail.
I love it. Every time we say it's like Blue's Clues.
That's the idea.
Okay, so a lot of nods to the original show. I mean, a few things. We use the Daredevil. We essentially use a remixed version of the Daredevil.
I gotta tell you, I like, just visually speaking, I really like the whole conceit of like the marble statues kind of morphing. Like, I like that a little bit more than the stained glass approach we had in the original intro.
Well, you know what's great about I don't know if you had this or it's been so many years you forgot about this. The moment I saw Kingpin from behind as like the marble statue, it reminded me of our analogy. Remember the whole like the perfection of the comparison of the Netflix shows where you had like this beautiful bust of Wilson Fisk,
right? Right.
So we got the beautiful bust. It's like they're referencing our podcast. Tiki.
Oh God.
Anyway, yeah. So no, you're right. It was with the whole Born Again, just kind of the cobbling things back together after you've kind of been brought to rock bottom. It fits really well. So let's see. So Nelson again, the Nelson Murdock and Page sign. The whole reason we were able to get honestly, the whole reason we were able to bring back the original show, just in period, was in part the showrunner championing the whole Nelson Murdock and Page napkin promise. So that was that sign was the fulfillment of that promise.
Yeah, it doesn't bother you that it's just kind of lip service, though? Like, that we bring it in just to be like, hey, look, it's technically there. They technically did make the office.
Look,
We're not going to spend any time there, but it technically happened. It's technically canon.
Okay, well, Tiki, that's the other thing too. Okay, in doing what we did, it kind of occurred to me, like, it is kind of a smart decision in terms of, like, well, we spent 3 seasons doing all the Nelson and Murdoch stuff that we kind of wanted to do, and it's like it would have been just more of like, we come back and we're just going to basically kind of it might run the risk of being like villain a week thing. But I mean, I'm not saying that.
You're right. That is a good point.
But you're right. I mean, look, I would have loved to have seen the sign more. Frankly, my hope is that we might see the sign, like Matt might have taken the sign with him. Frankly, that's my headcanon. I'd like to think, could be wrong. We don't know how nostalgic Matt Murdock is about such things, but I don't know.
Sure.
I mean, he did carry that ice cream bracelet that Stick gave him, so I don't know. Regardless, it was nice to see, and then the whole reason that we were able to kind of, Tiki. I want to tell you this too. Okay, from what I understand, the original plan is that we would have done it completely off screen. Like, at least they showed us the death here. That was the thing. It would have been completely, like, we wouldn't be able to get Foggy and Karen back, and we would just mention it casually in episode 1 versus like actually seeing the death happen.
Which would have been ridiculous. So yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, and that brings us to the other. Okay, so where to go with Foggy and Karen?
Yeah, I have a couple theories. I honestly think the coolest idea for Foggy, and this is something that Campia brought up, is what if we had like a season-long kind of like flashback arc with Foggy where it's revealed that the reason why Bullseye killed him wasn't just for revenge, but it was because he was into something a little bit deeper, like investigation-wise, or I don't know, or even not even that. Like, we don't even need a conspiracy. Just give us a good not backstory per se, but a good arc with Foggy and Matt as friends, and kind of like, like through the flashbacks. I feel like that would be a good way to kind of honor him. I mean, but then there's also like way more unconventional superhero ways where, like, the fucking Electra water does exist in this universe, technically. Splish splash in the blood, Foggy. Yeah. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Okay.
And then there is a possibility that it could have been like a faking his death thing, which I don't think that's the route they're gonna do, but like, you never know.
Okay, here's what I'm going to say about Foggy. It has been confirmed we will see him in season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that in mind, my instinct is that it's going to be flashback. The reason I say this, think about it, one of the best Foggy Nelson episodes in the whole series is Nelson versus Murdoch, which the majority of that episode is in flashback. So we can still do a lot of memorable, even potentially a full episode encompassing, or at least half episode encompassing.
I mean, especially because we've got the 7-year gap in between this and the next.
Yeah, 7 years, a lot of stories could happen. Like, for example, I think Foggy Nelson might have been blipped, and I think there's some adjustment period stuff.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
I think that's what I'm saying. Like, it's possible. So Foggy, I think that's another reason I'm not bothered, because I have a feeling, again, putting my faith in the showrunner here to actually go to we're actually going to show the death. It makes me think we're not going to waste this. If we're going to do that and we're going to bring Foggy back in flashback form, like we did Jack Murdoch, we could, there's stuff we could do there.
And then with Karen, I think that once Frank Castle gets introduced back into the picture, that's when she's gonna make a reemergence.
Like, Karen has opinions on vigilantes and knows the Punishers. Karen's absolutely gonna be back, and with Foggy too.
I don't buy that with Karen. It's just like, okay, she's out of the show now. Yeah. I don't buy that.
Yeah, I have a feeling Karen might be in it more in season 2 because they're going to be more on, because basically the half of the episode count that they had roughly 8 episodes or maybe less to work with. And that's basically what our first season is. That's probably, in terms of the leftover stuff, what we have.
Right.
Now, again, with Foggy, I do also love that in his last moments, he was doing the classic Foggy Nelson stuff we know and love. He was protecting it. He was defending the honor of a kind of an average Joe client who was like, he's going to walk. He is, and put him up in his own apartment. He was a good lawyer to the end, and he went out being Foggy, and I think that was appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hello, Karen. Like when Bullseye shows up saying hello, Karen.
Yes, that is cool.
That was great. Let's see. So our new supporting cast are from the comics. Kristen McDuffie, again, she's from the Mark Waid run. She and Matt start the firm together. Heather Glenn, a girlfriend of Matt Murdock's in the comics, also has a cameo in the 2003 Daredevil movie. Remember when Matt?
Really?
So here's the thing: when Matt goes back to his apartment, all moody and everything, after being beaten up overnight, the very beginning of the movie, the first time we see him, like, what his morning's like? You hear a girl on the phone breaking up with him. That's Heather Glenn.
Oh man, that's nuts.
So I hinted at this a little. We gotta kind of speed past a lot of these, but the color theory I'm always head over heels for. We have the reds, the whites, and the blacks, and Kingpin's suit. Like when he's going past, we're seeing the white suit. Vanessa's wearing the whites. We have the lighting with the red and the white at the very end of the episode. So I'm loving all that as usual. Just all the stuff that the usual stuff we're representing there. So we haven't lost the color theory at all, which is important.
Mm-hmm.
The Daredevil horn symbol, we should be tracking that because he still has that horn that Karen gave him.
Sure.
The omelet, we brought back the omelet as the Kingpin's reintroduction. He's cutting the omelet.
True.
Buck Cashman, Kingpin's number 2 guy. He is from the comics. He is a bad guy called Bullet. It's a remix on him, but we'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. The graffiti art. This is important. So the graffiti art of the Kingpin, foreshadowing the other bad guy of this season, Muse, who's the graffiti artist villain.
Jason Mewes?
No.
Can you imagine though?
Well, Kevin Smith. Remember,
it's just literally like New Jersey rapscallion Jason Mewes.
You joke about that, Tiki, but I will remind you, we're gonna have some Miss Marvel connects in this season. And also remember, Kevin Smith killed off Karen Page. So
that's true. That I forget that it's Kevin Smith that did that. Yeah.
Okay, real quick, she's gonna be more in focus next episode. But BB Urich, which I'm gonna throw this out there. I think the whole BB Urich stuff is the holdover from. I think all the BB Urich stuff is the holdover from the restructuring.
I can see that, and honestly, so far, I'm like, I don't hate it, but I'm very much like a little bit take it or leave it. Like, I think it's nice to get a little bit of a man on the street perspective, but I don't really know. I don't really see the storyline going very many places. Like, I don't know. Like, they're going to have to build to something with the BB Urich stuff.
Sure. I'm just saying she definitely feels like something's left over from the original version.
Sure. But, and also, like, was that name in the comics? Because it feels like a very, like...
To my knowledge, she's completely original to the
I'm
show.
not a fan of BB Urich just as a name, Dragon. Just, I don't know. Doesn't sit right with me.
That worked for Frasier. BB! Okay, we had Rogers.
How dare you wash your socks in our drinking water, BB? Now how will we ever survive in this harsh, unforgiving terrain? That Dragon is the most relevant survivor has ever been to your life.
Okay, anyway, so we had Rogers the musical still being referenced, and Harlem's Paris, Luke Cage's club. It was in Times Square.
Oh, dude, we need to get Luke Cage back. Season 2, maybe. I don't know.
Well, season 3, but.
Well, no. Well.
Oh no, sorry, I misheard. Sorry, I thought you meant
Born Again. Yeah.
Gotcha. Right. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, White Tiger, who again will be talked about in the next episode. There we go.
All right. Okay. And is that about it?
Tiki, I think that's about it.
All righty. Well, that's all for now. Until the next daring installment of Discerning Daredevil, Born Again. Come on, D! Get those D's on your costume, D! It's about branding!
Silly little costume.